Formula One on 5 Live.
Good morning and welcome to Las Vegas. It's Rosanna Tennant with you in the pit lane in Las Vegas, where it is currently 25 minutes past 2 in the morning. I'd love to say the grandstands are still packed with fans eagerly awaiting to see Formula One cars take to the track once more, but unfortunately they've been sent home. Why, you might ask? Well, we had about 9 minutes of running in FP1 before the session was stopped, and that was because two cars in particular, Esteban Ocon in the Alpine and Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, had some serious issues out on track. Their cars were broken essentially by this new track in Las Vegas, and the session was stopped and did not get back underway. And since then we have been waiting to get FP2 started. That was 5 hours and 50 minutes or so ago that we last saw cars on track, and here we are with an elongated FP2 session. Normally it would run for 60 minutes. It's now going to run for 90 minutes to give the teams and drivers more time to get used to this new track. The sound you can hear around me is the Ferrari garage, and it's Carlos Sainz's car. And as I just said, he was one of the cars, or one of the drivers who came a cropper in that first session. Ferrari managing to get his car sorted, and equally Esteban Ocon's Alpine is also ready to take part in the session. What a few hours it has been. We've managed to leave the track, go and get something to eat and come back, all the while keeping tabs on what was going on. Our BBC chief F1 writer Andrew Benson has also been keeping a keen eye on how things have been developing. It was all because a water valve cover popped up on the track, Andrew. That has now supposedly been fixed, but could we expect something to happen again in this FP2 session?
Well, we don't know, Rosanna, do we? But I'll tell you what, about 10 minutes ago, outside the commentary boxes over here, when we're situated at the pit lane entry, there were some men with a lorry and some tarmac just sort of running around, fixing the last, I assume, of the manhole covers around the track that needed attention. So it's been a real last-minute job. So I think there'll be quite a few crossed fingers as this session gets going. I should add that we believe that there's a hard stop at 4 a.m. in Las Vegas, which is, if I get my maths right, that's midday in the UK, when the track has to be closed to prepare it for the roads being reopened again in the morning.
So that does give us the chance to squeeze in a 90-minute session. There's been quite a lot of consternation in the paddock, I would say. Would you agree with that? With people thinking it's a little unfair to keep us all here until the early hours of the morning, whilst also sending the fans home. This is a really different scenario we've been presented with, isn't it, Andrew?
I think dismay would probably be the right word. You know, this is the sort of blue-ribboned event of the season in many ways. Formula One has been building up to this for a long time. It's a massive coup to have a Grand Prix in Las Vegas that runs down the strip past all the famous hotel casinos. And they would have wanted it to get off to a great start, and it just hasn't.
Do you think that the shine, the glitz and the glamour has slightly rubbed off, therefore, and all that hype has been put in the bin, essentially?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but an indication of the tension that this has all caused was in the press conference between these two sessions. A journalist from a British newspaper suggested to Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team principal, that this was all a black eye for Formula One. And Wolff, I have to say, he basically lost it. He swore at the journalist and went on a bit of a rant, and which, you know, it's sort of rule number one in a press conference: don't lose your temper. And so I think that underlines the pressure everybody in Formula One is under to get this event to work. And you know, there's been a lot of look, the big talk about this event, the big story, the backdrop to this event, if you like, is the sort of this contrast, this conflict between sport and entertainment. And Max Verstappen yesterday was saying he thinks this event's far on the wrong side of that line. 99% show, he said, 1% sporting event. And that's the backdrop to the entirety of the event. And so when the sporting event then suffers, it has a knock-on effect on the entertainment as well. But let's keep it in context. It's only a practice session. This was the point Wolff was making. The time it was happening, no one was really watching in Europe. The core audience for Formula One, Wolff was saying. And assuming the rest of the weekend goes okay, yes, there's going to be some eye bags in the paddock, including on my face tomorrow. But
I'll bring you some cucumber slices, Andrew. Don't you worry.
Thank you, Rosanna. But overall, it'll be fine.
In terms of that press conference, though, it was a great lineup. We had, as you say, Toto Wolff from Mercedes. We had James Vowles from Williams, Zak Brown from McLaren, and Fred Vasseur from Ferrari, who, of course, were one of the teams that suffered during that session. Fred Vasseur saying it was unacceptable. Do you think that's an okay thing to say, that actually the state of the track was unacceptable and we shouldn't have actually had that session, or that was not what you expect from a Formula One track, given even if it is just a new one?
Well, so the session ended with Wolff being emotional, and it started with Vasseur being emotional. That was his first answer, and the sort of compare in the press conference was trying to turn him around and say, yeah, but what about Vegas, the event? And Vasseur was having none of it at all. Because he's looking at a car, in Carlos Sainz's case, that was very badly damaged. He said it was going to cost a fortune to repair it. They've done an incredible job to get that car ready, as indeed have Alpine for Esteban Ocon's car, which hit the same drain after the red flag had thrown, and they weren't given any warnings by the FIA that there were problems with the track as they were coming back to the pits, which they're not very happy about either. So tempers have frayed today, there's no question about that, but the cars are just going out on track.
Certainly are.
We're getting the backdrop to all this beautiful backdrop, so let's see what happens for the next 90 minutes.
Absolutely. That is the sound of Max Verstappen heading out in the Red Bull, and Carlos Sainz is just being guided out of the Ferrari garage by one of the mechanics. His car is back in working order, and Lewis Hamilton just pulling out behind Sergio Perez. We've got a green light. It's just after 2:30 local time. It's finally time to see some Formula One cars out on track on this new Las Vegas Grand Prix circuit. Let's keep our fingers crossed. No more water valve covers pop up here or there. I'm going to hand you over to former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer, who's in the commentary box alongside racing driver Alice Powell, and Andrew Benson's up there as well. Over to you, Jolyon.
Here we go again then. Take two at Las Vegas. I have to say, it's a very different vibe right now. 2.5 hours later than we thought we'd get this FP2 session off. And we haven't had really an FP1 session either. Just 9 minutes were on the clock earlier on before Sainz had his troubles. And so we've already got a busy circuit, 13 drivers out on circuit, and 1.5 hours on the clock. It's going to be a frantic one, and it's going to be a tense one for the FIA to make sure that this is all good, but it's still going to be, Alice, a crucial one for everyone to get up to speed with this.
Yeah, it certainly is, as Lando Norris ran slightly wide there, which looked like that was 14-15 potentially, going slightly wide there. Obviously the track has not been open to anyone, or bar the vehicles that have been going around on the circuit, and obviously we didn't have that much running, of course, in free practice 1, 8 minutes I think it was, wasn't it? So the track is still really dirty as Max Verstappen feeds his way through 14, 15, now into turn 16, runs right up close to the wall, and plumes of dust are kicked up from the back.
We are boxed this lap.
Oh dear. So that's Lando Norris, limp home mode and box this lap. So you mentioned that he went wide on one of the corners earlier on this lap. He started a flyer in the McLaren. They were the first two cars out onto circuit in this session, and Norris will be pitting as he is now coming through the middle sector at the moment. Verstappen is on a flyer, and we should say that there was a huge buzz at the start of FP1, a new weekend. There are about 12 people in the grandstand opposite us right now. Fair play to them for sticking through. It's chilly out there. It is air temperature just 13 degrees. Track temperature is 15. The sun has long since set. It's soon to rise by the time we finish this one as well. It is truly a night session. And the fans that have stayed hopefully will get 90 minutes of their money's worth.
And white default 01, please. White default 01.
Am I still boxed?
Stand by.
I got limp mode again.
Yeah, we will be boxing.
So that's Lando Norris. And are you ready for him, Rosanna?
I am ready. I've not got any equipment, Jolyon, but the mechanics of McLaren have got all the equipment to receive Lando Norris. They're all looking down the pit lane, waiting for the papaya-coloured McLaren to appear. I imagine he'll be going fairly slowly, but the mechanics are ready to jack him up and I'm sure get him into the garage as quickly as possible to ascertain the problem. But I have to say the pit lane is fairly quiet. A lot of people out on track wanting to get as much track time as possible given all of the issues we've spoken about with that 9 minutes of running in FP1 and now hoping that this 90-minute session can progress and proceed as normal, but we've got a green flag. Track is clear. So just waiting for Lando, but here he comes. He's come around the corner. I knew that if I waited patiently he would arrive. This is the sound of Lando Norris in the McLaren, and the engine cuts immediately as the mechanics put in the leaf blowers, making sure to keep the car at the right temperature, up on the jack and the skateboards, and they're wheeling him back fast. Mechanics running back into the garage to make sure they can get to work on the car and to work out what's gone wrong with it.
So then, whilst Norris has come in, we've had a couple of heart-in-mouth moments. Firstly, probably from the race directions, when the yellow flag was waved within the first 5 minutes. But Kevin Magnussen has found himself running straight on at turn 12 in the Haas. And we've had Sergio Perez as well running on at the same corner, turn 12, that it splits up two of the longest straights on this circuit, leads on to the Las Vegas Strip all the way down to turn 50. It's the sound of Verstappen as well, going deep and running through the runoff area. So a lot of drivers are making early mistakes. Track grip still looks like it's at a real premium. Alonso with a chunky lockup out there.
Yeah, it's cold out there. We'll say cold. Track temperature is 15.3 degrees, which for an F1 circuit is fairly chilly. Air temperature is 13.2 degrees. And because of these long straights, obviously, Jolyon, and you'll know this well from doing plenty of racing yourself, that it's hard to generate the tyre temperature, and with the long straights obviously the tyres will lose temperature. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing quite a few drivers get to the end of the straight, for example into turn 14, have a lockup just because that temperature is not there, which is the sound now of Carlos Sainz that you can hear going through 14, 15, 16. Brakes fairly early, it looked to me. He has gone purple in the middle sector, but not many people have set any real flying laps at the moment. But what a great job, it must be said, by Ferrari and Alpine to get these two cars out that were quite badly damaged, weren't they, from that water cover?
Yeah, they took an advantage of the session being delayed. Sainz and Ocon both in this one. 18 cars are out on circuit, both McLarens are in the pits. Sainz has just gone to the top of the times on the soft tyres, 139.8, which is just about a second quicker than Leclerc did on his couple of laps earlier on. And Andrew, there was a bit of a discussion for Sainz as well, and Fred Vasseur and Ferrari in the break. They managed to repair the car, but they wanted to have mitigation, have extenuating circumstances to not have to have a grid penalty for changing components, and the FIA have denied them that.
That's right. So they fitted a new engine to his car, and that's outside of their permitted allocation for the season. They were already outside of that. And their argument was that because of the unusual circumstances, i.e. it's not their fault, basically the car hit a manhole cover and that's what broke the engine. It's not just the engine, it's also the battery and the chassis that needed to be replaced. Hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of damage, possibly even more than that. But the stewards said they couldn't accept that because there was nothing in the rules that allowed that to happen. Now, I've not studied the rules, but I would bet you that the rules don't say that it can't happen either. But there you are. The stewards have said no, and they're going to get a grid. Sainz will have a grid penalty on Sunday. It's just a question of how many places at the moment.
And this is really an absolute nightmare for a team that had really high hopes coming into this weekend. We mentioned it on our brief FP1 broadcast, where this is a mix maybe of Monza and Singapore in terms of low downforce street circuit in the night, where Ferrari and Sainz won. They were very competitive in Monza as well. And this is the sound of Charles Leclerc heading down towards the final corner where he's on another flyer. At the moment, Ferrari 1-2, Sainz ahead of Leclerc. The Red Bulls 3 and 4 on the medium tyres. Ferrari's 1 and 2 on the softs, and Leclerc squeezes on the throttle. It's flat out of turn 16. He's about to flash past our commentary box on the apex of the final corner, sparking his way through. Builds the speed up to 200 miles per hour, just shy of that, and goes nearly a second clear. Top now, Leclerc, then Sainz. But a 5-place grid penalty for Sainz, something that he's absolutely no way culpable of having, is so harsh.
Yes, it's exactly right, Joe, and it's a sort of track that Ferrari would be expected to go well at, to the extent that you could even say they might be potential favourites for pole position. However, although it's a street track like Singapore and low grip like Singapore and slow corners like Singapore, I don't think that necessarily means Ferrari are going to win the race, because obviously the big difference is that in Singapore you can't really overtake, whereas and also Red Bull had an absolute nightmare that weekend, whereas in Las Vegas you very clearly can overtake. The main straight down the strip is nearly 2 kilometers long, and there are other very long straights as well. So I think even if Ferrari did lock out the front row, which they now can't because Sainz will have a grid penalty, they did struggle to hold Verstappen back anyway in the race, so it's probably not going to make that much of a difference to them. But it is, of course, a blow, and it is, you know, in terms of natural justice, of course it's unfair that they're not allowed to change that engine for free.
Could be a lower degradation circuit though as well, which would help Ferrari. But I guess, Alice, in the FIA's position here, you could open a can of worms by saying that it's extenuated circumstances, because these things have happened before, and curbs causing damage, other roadside furniture. I guess this opens a can of worms.
Yeah, no, exactly that. Curbs, as you mentioned, we even saw Lando Norris, didn't we, in the brief free practice one, that we got really go over one of the curbs somewhere through one of the chicanes. I think it was turn 7. Near enough with middle of the car skateboard across the middle of the curb. So yeah, if you happen to damage a part, the teams would go, well, hang on, Ferrari got damaged by a cover, we've been damaged by a curb. You just have people trying it left, right and centre, which, you know, is probably why they have said no, because they know that they will likely have people in the future, or teams in the future, try it on.
Indeed. So it's a tough one for Sainz, but at least he's back out there. Hamilton has gone to the top of the times, also on the soft tyres. Leclerc second now, and Sainz is a full second back. This is the sound of Max Verstappen accelerating out of the final corner, coming towards the left kink, which is the official final corner where we're situated. He blasts past our commentary box in a blur, and Verstappen now goes to the top on the medium tyres. Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, Sainz and Alonso, your top 5. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, George Russell, the top 10. Then it's Bottas, Ocon, Sargent, Ricciardo, Gasly, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg and Zhou. And Rosanna, the two McLarens, 19th and 20th, they haven't done anything yet.
No, and they're both in the garage, Jolyon. And the problem for Lando Norris, we heard him being told to come back in, to box because the car had gone into limp mode. It's because the car's had a cooling issue, so that is being resolved currently. The mechanics working on that. The engine cover has been taken off, it's now being put back on, and a few little adjustments to the front suspension have been made as well while Lando's been waiting in the garage. So wasting precious time, or essentially losing precious time out on track, but good to get that issue sorted so that they can take part in the rest of this much longer session. We've had almost 15 minutes of it, just another hour and an hour and 3/4 to go.
Hour and a quarter.
Hour and a quarter. Getting ahead of myself.
Oh, I got a little concerned there. I don't know if I've got any energy left for a past 4 a.m. today. Leclerc goes to the top of the times. Time's tumbling all the while. It is a street circuit. It's a brand new one. And the track, which looked pretty slippery to start with, still slippery, still rubbering in. But on the soft tyres, the times are slowly nibbling down. There's a yellow flag out in the final sector, where we've got Lance Stroll pointing the wrong way, coming out of turn 16. And the Aston Martin looks like he can rejoin and get going again with that. I don't think he's hit the wall there. That's coming into turn 15, the left-hander in the final sector at the end of the Las Vegas Strip. And Stroll has had a little bit of a moment, but he can bring the car back.
Yeah, so he's slammed on the brakes, and that front left was not moving for a long time. He then released it, tried to turn, and thought, yeah, better of it, because he was heading into the wall. Finds reverse quite nicely. George Russell was just ahead of him, had no problems, but yeah, that was the best thing. We've seen a lot of people at 14. I keep seeing that people keep going off at 12 as well, and those are the heavy braking zones. And again, it stems to getting that tyre temperature. Lando Norris is still in the pits getting repair work done. That's quite worrying if they've got cooling problems and the air temperature is only 13 degrees.
Not the circuit you'd expect cooling problems. One of the coolest races of the year.
How are the tyres on that lap?
Yeah, they go together with the track, so it keeps getting better.
Okay, so that's Sergio Perez there saying as the track's getting better, the tyres are getting better, and he's feeling a little bit more confident. Stroll looked like he braked really early as well for turn 15, but it just goes to show low downforce on this street circuit at the moment. They're just not finding the grip at the moment.
There actually looks like there's a little bit of a bump as well going down into turn 15, so we'll keep an eye on that as a little bit of traffic for Perez to navigate. He seems quite happy at the moment with his car, reporting back to the engineer. Track is improving, comes down into turn 12, get it stopped really nicely, and then he heads off down the 1.7 kilometre straight with the DRS detection is basically at turn 13, which is just the kink there, and then not long after that you have DRS from 13 all the way down to turn 14. Sparks fly. Lewis Hamilton gets nicely out of the way, comes over the brow. Does he get it stopped? Yes, he does. He goes slightly wide of the apex there and rails the curb at turn 15. Bits of paint fly off the curb, sparks as well, but he carries on, Jolyon.
Here he comes then to the line, Sergio Perez through turn 17. Track narrows slightly as he comes across the line, and Perez goes up to 4th. So it's now Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz and Perez, the top 4, then Hamilton 5th, Magnussen more than a second back in 6th ahead of Albon. Loads of cars sporadically sparking as well on that back straight where Sainz had his manhole cover strike. But so far, so good in this session. We've got an hour and 13 minutes and 30 seconds, 29.28 left on the clock. And so far, fairly routine. Track grip coming up. Sergio Perez quite happy. He did Muller the curve at turn 16. Might have taken a chunk out of the floor, but I guess you got to just build it up in a street circuit like this. You've got to find your feet. Norris went over very quickly over the curb and found the limits. Perez building up to a little bit slower, but we know he's got street circuit form as well.
Yeah, been certain have it. Actually, it looks quite an interesting corner down there at 14. It looks like it's slightly off camber, which is why the car sort of got away from Perez, and he was essentially forced to go over that curb there at 15. Oscar Piastri gets very close towards the wall there at 12. Heads down the straight. Carlos Sainz has just gone purple in the first sector. That's the fastest out of everybody overall on circuit, and he's on the soft tyre.
So for those of you that didn't join us at 4 o'clock in the morning UK time, for the 9 minutes that we had, it's a 6.2 kilometre circuit that we've got. The first sector starts with a tight left-hander into a medium-speed right-hander, and you extend your way up towards turn 5, where you come through a couple of corners that greet you to the MSG Sphere, through 6, 7, 8 and 9, a tight twisty combination. Then that'll bring you up high speed up towards turn 12, a crucial corner, the left-hander that Perez and Magnussen have gone straight on at so far today. That then leads you onto the Las Vegas strip and down towards the final corner at turn 15. It's a very fast track. It's low downforce on a street circuit, and it's very, very tricky for everyone to build up to this without plonking the car in the wall and having not had an hour's running so far. This is it. An hour and 11 minutes left on the clock, but you don't want to build up too quick, overcook it, and find yourself in the barrier and learn absolutely zippo today.
No, exactly, and that's why I bet Sainz and Esteban Ocon are really relieved that their teams both worked so hard to get the cars back out on track. So they'll be benefiting from getting that track experience. There'll be a lot for them to work through as Alex Albon comes out, currently sitting in 7th place, gets pretty close to the wall there on the exit of 9, comes flying through 10. Great section of circuit before going into the tricky 12, which again we've seen several people lock up. It looks like a tricky corner, doesn't it, 12, because you're almost turning and braking at the same time. He's currently half a second down from Max Verstappen's, who's set the fastest time overall at the moment.
The wall just jinks out on you as well, coming through the left-hander at 12 on the exit. A little bit like Baku at the penultimate real corner, where we often see drivers snagging the wall there with the right rear. So that'll definitely be one of the key corners to watch out for. Albon's through the final couple. We join him on board, coming up towards the line. New painted helmet for him. I'm pretty sure every driver in the field has a new helmet this weekend. We'll double check tonight and see who didn't run one.
I think he's got a fairly neutral, well, same helmet as before. But yeah, you're probably right.
Good on
There's
him.
not many that have. Maybe that's why, because he thought, well, everyone's going to have one. Majority. So
Old
be
school
different.
is the new cool. There's some elaborate designs out there, as you'd expect for Vegas. And Gasly, Talk the Devil, is the first driver to get a black and white flag for crossing the line at the pit entry.
So just an update on the Carlos Sainz situation. He's got a 10-place grid drop for a third energy store battery, that is, and you're only allowed 2 batteries per season. So that's going to hurt.
Okay, on the hashtag BBC F1, there's already a few of you getting in touch wanting justice for Sainz.
Are we signing a petition or something?
I'm not starting the petition, but I'm saying if you want to get a question in to Andrew the Oracle Benson, then that is your platform, or to Alice Powell, or to myself, Jolyon Palmer, or to Rosanna Tennant in the pits, then get it into us at hashtag BBCF1. Sainz has got a lot of support out there. It's a tricky one for him. We've already touched on it. 10 places. He's turned up to Vegas for a race that he had the potential to be on the front row for maybe to win. He's the only driver that's beaten a Red Bull this year, and through hitting a manhole cover in the first 9 minutes of FP1, he's on the back foot. I mean, a 10-place grid penalty is going to be nigh on impossible to recover.
Yeah, I really feel for him, because it was totally out of his hands, but this is motorsport, isn't it? You know, unfortunately, there's many things that can be out of your control. You could be leading a race and someone make a mistake behind you and take you out, but that, at the very start of a weekend, 8 minutes into a session, it's not good. But as I said, I totally understand why they have done that with sort of having to make sure that they cover their backs in the future if people say, well, hang on, you know, it was damaged by this, not actually the driver error or whatever. But there we go.
Them's the rules. Sadly, them's the rules, and Sainz has been the unlucky man so far in this one. Gasly's come on the radio and said he actually couldn't see the pit lane entry line, and that's why he crossed it. It's not bright enough for him out there. It's quite bright out there.
I think these lights, I went in the pit lane earlier and almost needed to put sunglasses on. Having been in places like Singapore, I think these lights are really bright.
Are you a shade in the dark sort of person? Edgy cool?
Yeah, I mean, I needed it for that one, and I'm pale. The lights were probably going to give me sunburn or light burn or whatever you want to call it. They are that bright.
It is amazing how floodlit tracks generally, it's all you can see. Even with all the distractions here, we've got some of the world's biggest hotels lining the circuit, some of the biggest light shows, the Bellagio, the Caesar's Palace, all the amazing landmarks of Las Vegas. And then you turn on all the lights lining the circuit, and it just kind of blinds a lot of it for you when you're strapped into the car going up towards 200 miles per hour, hurtling around a 6.2 kilometre street circuit. And Lando Norris has gone straight through turn 8 again. So Norris back on circuit, but not having a much better time of it at the moment. Rosanna?
I thought you were going to ask if I'm edgy cool.
Oh, I don't. I
You
spare
don't
your
need to
blushes,
ask that.
Rosanna.
So cool.
I spare your blushes.
I'm as edgy as a circle, I think. No sunglasses down here in the pit lane, but it is so bright, as you were saying, Alice. It is mad. I was listening into Fernando Alonso's radio on the Aston Martin channel, obviously. It was quite difficult to understand what he was saying, but I think he's talking about graining on the rear tyres. He's done about 9 laps on them, and this was something we were talking about coming into the weekend, that graining could be an issue. Jolyon, you'll know what that feels like in a Formula 1 car, the graining. Sometimes it clears itself up, doesn't it, a little bit? But is this something we need to worry about then, that this is going to be a factor playing into perhaps the race on Saturday night? Does that mean they're going to avoid the soft tyre, do you think?
Well, this is all the learning they've got to do. So Pirelli have got 3 composite tyre here, as they always have in the current regulations, and they've gone for the softest end of the tyres because the temperature's so cool, because the straights are long. It's going to be very difficult to get heat into the tyres. Graining is effectively where the tyre's not working in the right window, so you haven't got the right temperature to get the tyres to grip up as much as possible, so they start sliding across the asphalt, and then they ball up the rubber on the surface, and it's a very difficult thing to get on top of, because it's all about getting the tyres into the window. But the only way to do that sometimes when they're cold is to push hard, and then you can induce the graining. And sometimes you've got to drive through it and work your way towards the window. And as you mentioned, you can have lap after lap of it feeling horrible, and then occasionally it could just start to come back towards you. This is the time to find it out, though. We've still got more than an hour on the clock. And as Verstappen there leaves the garage to join the fray again, they've got to learn this sort of thing. Charles Leclerc on an outlap right now, weaving very hard. They've got to figure out these tyres, because let's not forget all the drama that we've had so far. This is a race that's going to be highly sought after to win. The first Las Vegas Grand Prix back on the calendar for 41 years. This is a showpiece event, and everyone feels like they've got a chance here.
You might see, actually, drivers maybe do an outlap and one build lap, which is obviously even possibly another one, just to try and get those temperatures up, because obviously that Pirelli set a minimum tyre pressure, so this is quite different to what we've seen in previous races, and obviously the minimum tyre pressure that they set compared to when the tyres come in, let's say hot, that's going to be, you know, a smaller number compared to if you're running somewhere that's Qatar, for example, where it was crazy warm. So the teams have got that to deal with as well, but it can make or break your qualifying if you don't get those tyre pressures, those tyres in and generate that pressure, and you go into turn one and you've only got one lap and the tyres are not up to temperature. That can really can ruin it for you.
How often we see the best car that just doesn't switch on the tyres and becomes a very mediocre car overnight. It can happen as Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc get dicey out on circuit, coming through the middle sector, and now down there to the Las Vegas Strip. Side by side they were, coming through the flat out sections up towards turn 12, and Leclerc backs out of it and cedes the place to Verstappen, who's bolted on a set of soft tyres. He starts a flying lap, and the triple world champion, the current champion, the champion of 2023, we'll see if he can lower a benchmark. This is Verstappen's first lap then on a set of softs. He's run a set of mediums so far. He's up in the top spot, 1 minute 38.2, and his first sector doesn't look like he's pulling up any trees either yet. So this is all the sort of thing they've got to figure out in this extended practice, the only meaningful practice of the day. How can they switch these tyres on? How close can they get to the barriers? The drivers are leaning on the curbs as well, finding out which lines they can take. So much going on, and we've already got 2 different compounds of tyre. We might get some long runs today, Andrew, as well.
Let's hope so, Jolyon. Have a bit of Eagles. Wake us all up.
I'm waiting with bated breath.
I'm flagging, man, I tell you.
It is. What is the time? Nearly 3 a.m. local time. It's been a long day. Most of us with jet lag been up since 8 a.m. We're nearly on 24 hours, but we're here in Vegas and we're enjoying the show.
Max is racing already.
Copy.
So that was Leclerc declaring the race was on, with Verstappen, who actually came in hot down towards turn 12, and they slowed it right up to block Leclerc from coming back through. It was quite racy, wasn't it?
That was. I mean, I guess it's for track position, but we've still got an hour left. But Max was certainly getting his elbows out, as that's the sound of you can hear now is Sergio Perez, who did go fastest in the middle sector, but that now has changed quite quickly as Carlos Sainz has stolen that off him. So Sainz looking pretty racy out there at the moment. Perez feathers it through quite nicely through 14, 15, 16. Flat out, got a Ferrari just in front of him. But that won't trouble his lap at all as he flies through the final corner, goes up to the top of the times, 4 tenths clear of his teammate. But I don't think it's going to be for long, Jolyon.
No, Carlos Sainz behind him on circuit is also going very quickly. Verstappen now starts a flying lap as well. Sainz comes through and cuts the beam, and he's a full 8 tenths quicker than Sergio Perez. So with an hour left on the clock, Sainz goes top from Perez. Verstappen is on a flying lap and has done a personal best in the first sector. Here is the Dutchman coming out through turn 9. He'll sweep around George Russell up towards the right-hand side, flat out through turn 10. He's got to pick out a braking zone next for turn 12. The corner that breaks up 2 really long flat-out sections, and he doesn't hit the brakes very well at all.
No, steam's on. He's just about going to get it turned without having to spin the car around, is he? Yeah, you look pretty clear there, Max. but that's really ruined his lap, and that's down again at turn 12, where everybody's struggling again. Tyre temperature struggling down there. Max keeps it far out the way of Charles Leclerc that's come through, who has just gone fastest in the middle sector. So Sergio Kadir is riding on board. A replay of Max Verstappen. And yeah, he just locks up really late. He winds the lock on and clearly got a little bit too much brake on as he tries to feed it into the corner, and has to bail out pretty quickly. Otherwise, he was heading straight into the tyre barrier.
Yeah, he just had the brakes, tried to turn it in, and as soon as he tried to turn it in with that amount of speed, the front left locked up. So Verstappen will wait for a time. He was going quickly on that lap for half of it, as Charles Leclerc comes through and goes up to second place. So Sainz from Leclerc, from Perez and Verstappen, who didn't get the lap in. Albon is fifth, ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Norris up to seventh now in the McLaren, having done a couple of laps. He's done the fewest of anyone, though, on just 7, and he's back in the pits once again. Then it's Bottas, Magnussen, Sargent in the top 10 in the Williams. Then Ocon, Alonso, Hulkenberg, Ricciardo, Stroll, Russell, Tsunoda, Gasly and Zhou. Piastri in the other McLaren is picking up the rear at the moment in 20th position, as the Alfa Romeo Valtteri Bottas starts to wind it up on the soft tyres. Lots of laps starting to come in then on second set of tyres. I guess we went with a 90-minute session. This used to be the norm a couple of years ago. Now it's cut down to 60 by regulation on a Friday, and of course on a Saturday through to qualifying. But this is now the second set. This is now towards the quali simulation run. So this is actually pretty important running that the drivers will have before the regular stuff tomorrow, and we're back into it. I guess this is the time for them to find your braking points, to maybe overcook it and dial it back when you need to.
Yeah, certainly. But I think the track's going to be quite a bit different, isn't it, to qualifying? But it's still good to try and pick up as many references as possible. As we're riding on board with Bottas now, as he sparks fly off the back of his car as he heads through and pops up into P6 on the soft tyres. So not a bad effort from Valtteri Bottas there. Still 1.6 seconds off Carlos Sainz, who Sainz has got a good 2.5 tenths clear of his teammate, as George Russell now goes through 7, 8 and 9, that quite twisty section of track. And Max Verstappen now has set a lap time on the soft tyre finally, after going off at 12, fastest in the last sector, but 1.5 tenths off Carlos Sainz, who keeps the top stop for now.
So Verstappen finding his pace then, managing to complete the lap, jumps up to second place, and pretty much still put in his ideal time. So second flying lap for Max, and it was good enough. And he didn't destroy that set of tyres on the first one with the lock-up. Didn't need a spin turn to get it going again. So that's a decent lap from Verstappen. Russell now on a personal best in the Mercedes on the soft tyres, was sparking a lot coming through the right-hander at turn 10. Flat out there up towards turn 12, the corner that caught out Max Verstappen. He's down to the final couple of corners now, rides the curve coming through 16. He's flat out on the exit. 800 metres now to the line, and Russell will look up and keep it pinned through the left-hander, flat out, flashing past us. And Russell, 1.7 seconds off, jumps to 7th. Yeah. It looked very low as well, the Mercedes. It looked like it was sparking out a lot through that middle sector. And that's not the pace that they would have hoped to unleash.
No, certainly not. But Carlos Sainz has just gone even quicker. He is now 4 tenths of a second faster, as we're going to hear from Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, traffic.
With Hamilton? Oh, come on. You should have done.
Yep.
You should have done. Okay.
So that's Daniel Ricciardo, and he was starting a flying lap on the soft tyres, came through the first corner and found Hamilton coming out of the pits. Now this is something that's been talked about already this weekend with this circuit layout. The pit exit is very tight, moves you around to the left-hand side, off the track at turn 1, but then kind of filters you straight onto the racing line in towards turn 3. Turn 2 is the same as turn 1, basically. It's one long left-hander. And that could be something we're going to see more of. Drivers just coming out of the pits, minding their own business, and finding themselves tripping over someone on a flying lap.
Well, it's a little bit like Singapore, Jolyon, isn't it? It's not the same corner profile, but the same idea of a pit lane feeding out into the first 3 corners. And if you remember at Singapore a few years ago, there was actually a crash between Nico Hülkenberg and Sergio Perez at that corner, when they sort of got mixed up in that sort of situation. So it's something that the FIA will be keeping an eye on. But as with so many of these situations, it's hard to see what they can actually do about it. But again, it's a brand new track. You do have to ask yourself, why would you design it like that way when you presumably don't have to?
Yeah, it seemed curious. And Leclerc starting another flying lap. He's just actually gone to the top of the times now, Leclerc, by less than a tenth over Carlos Sainz. And he, on a flying lap, you do cut into that pit lane exit. So that shows the considerations that everyone's got to have. It's going to take a lot of communication over the radio to make sure that they are all clean and not impeding in qualifying tomorrow. Flying laps coming in. Max Verstappen has set the fastest first sector of anybody. Lewis Hamilton's on a lap. This is the sound of Fernando Alonso coming into turn 15, bouncing over the curb at 16, which now looks like everyone's settled on the perfect point that you can take without straddling it. And Alonso now will pick up the speed up towards 200 miles per hour, turn it into the flat-out left-hander at 17. The finish line greets him straight away, and Alonso jumped to 6th position, but he's on a set of medium tyres, so Aston Martin doing something a little different. How about Hamilton? He now follows through the final corner. Hamilton sparking a lot in that Mercedes, but he's quick, way quicker than Russell at this stage. Hamilton jumps to 3rd, 3 tenths down on Charles Leclerc. Verstappen's improving as well. Let's join the Dutchman, getting on the throttle up towards the final corner once again. And Max Verstappen, he's done 3 laps now on this set of soft tyres, keeps it pinned and jumps up only to 3rd place. So Mercedes improving, Verstappen improving, but it's still, with 53 minutes and 26, 25, 24 left on the clock, it's still a Ferrari 1-2. They look strong.
Yeah, they certainly do. Max didn't set a personal best at all in that last sector, so not sure if he had a slight issue. Sound you can hear now is Lance Stroll really clattering that curb. See, flying off there, and that's the same curb, isn't it, that Lando Norris greeted down there at turn 7, and took a little bit too much. So it didn't look like a comfortable ride for Lance Stroll. As more cars now making sure they've got good track position. Hülkenberg is coming through the final chicane, the 14-15. He's on the medium tyre still, so we can still, don't we, Joni, have a few drivers out there that are probably waiting for the track to maybe develop a little bit before they put on the soft tyre?
Still many of them have not run the soft. We've got Alonso out there on a medium, as is Magnussen, who's jumped up into 10th position. Hülkenberg is completing his lap now. We'll see if he can join his teammate a little bit further up. And then it's the 2 McLarens who are fairly anonymous right now. Norris down in 17th, 2.6 seconds away, and Piastri 4.5 seconds away is at the bottom of the order at the moment. Are they running longer runs with Piastri? He's on a very different run plan. This is the sound of Pierre Gasly, who's had a spin down at turn 12 as well. So turn 12 really catching out a lot of drivers. Hülkenberg's been in the run-off there, and that looks like the crucial corner, turn 12. Long run into it, 800 metres down Sands Avenue, past the Wynn Golf Course, where Gasly was part of the Netflix Cup. Teamed up with, who was it, Gasly? Sainz won it, teamed up with Justin Thomas on Wednesday, part of the Razzmatazz. And Gasly did it with Albon and Lando Norris. You a golfer?
I'm not. I'd be terrible, I feel. I play hockey and I don't know if they really mix bending my elbows. That's not what you do in golf, is it? You know, bend your elbows, I guess. I don't know.
Aaron Benson, you're a golfer. You're a patient man.
I am not a golfer.
That doesn't surprise me for some reason.
I wish I was a better golfer. I got asked to do a sort of F1 meets golf appearance in Austin a few years ago, and I'd like to have done that sort of thing, but I would have embarrassed myself. And golf is the sort of thing you can embarrass yourself very easily, so I steer clear of them. But good on those 4 drivers for giving it a go. Hamilton on a flying lap in the Mercedes. Loads of traffic for him at the final corner. Loads of drivers still out there trying to put in soft tyre times and improve their ranking at the moment. Leclerc top from Sainz, Verstappen, Hamilton fourth and improving. Here he goes into the final couple of corners. Mercedes sliding slightly through 15, flat out through 16. He picks up a slipstream from Kevin Magnussen up towards the final corner, and he will keep it pinned to the line. And can Hamilton jump up into the top 3 or beyond? Yes, he can. Fastest final sector once again for Lewis Hamilton. The Mercedes showing a turn of speed there, and he is just 0.003 of a second down on Charles Leclerc. So there's a much better start for Mercedes in this one after their horrible run in Brazil. I feel like, Andrew, for Mercedes, they need a non-sprint race weekend. They've been caught out recently by the sprints in Austin with illegality, in Brazil with maybe overcompensating for that, raising the car, losing a load of pace. And in between, they've found some okay pace.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's not that big a surprise when you think about what's sort of been the story of their season, really, which is the unpredictability of their car. They're never quite sure, Lewis Hamilton has said on a number of different occasions, when they put it on the track, where it's going to be. And even in the course of a sort of a normal weekend, there have been, times when he's got out of it on a Friday and said it was awful and it's like the worst he's ever driven, and then he's gone in on Saturday and it's been quite competitive, and then also completely the opposite situation when after Friday he's been really optimistic and then on Saturday it's been nowhere. I think it's just a reflection of the fact that they've made a mistake with that car concept, which they've now accepted, and it's got fundamental flaws in it which make it very difficult to set up. And even when they've got the setup right, it still maintains one fundamental key weakness, which is not enough rear downforce, not enough rear grip. And the drivers have been complaining about that for 2 years basically now. I saw some quotes from George Russell the other day where he was saying that they know why they're slow. I don't think there's been a lot of indication so far that would give too much confidence that they're going to make a big step forward next year, but we can't know because they're going to change the car so much. But the key thing is going to be, have they understood it? Do they understand how to go forward? Because what clearly happened over last winter was that they thought that they'd understood it, and it turned out that they hadn't.
Major disappointment for them, really, coming into this year after winning in Brazil last year with George Russell, being absolutely nowhere this year. They're very coy, aren't they? Considering that they're abandoning this concept in a week's time, they're not giving anything up about where it's not very good.
No, they really aren't, are they? As Charles Leclerc looked like he was on for a good one there, set fastest first sector of anybody, and then just didn't quite get it together in those. Actually lost a second in the final sector, so it must have been a mistake there somewhere. George Russell holds the fastest final sector. As we're checking out a replay now, Nico Hülkenberg, who also has got a black and white flag for failing to follow the race director's instructions and crossing the white line. But I've also seen that as well as Gasly from early on in the session, Lance Stroll has got one of those as well. So clearly quite a few of the drivers struggling there, Jolien, to see that line. And Alex Albon, as I say, that has popped up now into P3 with a really quite handy lap there.
Albon's looking good. The top 4 are separated by less than a tenth. This is Formula One. This is the tight field that we want. Leclerc from Hamilton, from Albon, from Sainz, 2 Ferraris, a Mercedes and a Williams, all separated by nothing. We've had a load of soft tyre runs. This is exciting, Andrew.
Jolien, can I just remind you?
Oh, come on, not at this
You
time.
got very, very excited about Alex Albon's pace at a race that we were commentating on together not very long ago at all. Was it Austin, maybe?
I was Mexico.
Was it Mexico? Yeah.
He was in the top 3 in FP3, wasn't he?
And I was trying to, dampen things down, and you weren't having anything of it. And I would just express the same note of caution today.
He qualified 15th.
By the way, is it today? Is it tomorrow? Is it yesterday? I've lost track by now. But
it's today.
It's today. We've got lots of
today here.
Today.
We're into Friday. It's a Friday practice session. That's what we've got.
It is now.
We didn't think we were going to have it this weekend. We thought it'd be Thursday night. Turns out it's Friday morning for practice after all. 3:14 a.m. in Las Vegas. It's been a long day for everyone involved. And we've got 45 minutes. We're halfway through crucial running for the day. And everyone, all the drivers, all the teams are still absolutely dialed into this. So let's take this back. It's been a bizarre day. 9 minutes of running in FP1 to start building up to your normal run. Sainz whacks the manhole cover. Ocon picks up a load of damage, gouges the bottom of his Alpine. Both of those cars are destroyed. Ferrari and Alpine have had to change chassis for Sainz and Ocon. The session was abandoned. We've had a 2.5-hour delay. We've now got an extended session. And it's tricky for the drivers. Let's not forget, it's 3:15 here in Vegas. Everyone's fighting some sort of jet lag. We're just off the back of a triple header as well. Body clocks are all over the place. And the drivers have got to work on an absolutely critical session here. It's tough for everyone, but these guys are under pressure. Small mistakes and you find yourself in the wool.
Well, that's not just the drivers, it's the mechanics as well.
Absolutely. I mean, Fernando Alonso was on our flight over here, and I'm struggling. I don't know how he's doing. He's going quite quickly.
He probably got a nice
actually.
sleep up the front of the plane.
I'm sure he did.
Us at the back, certainly didn't.
Yeah, he looked a lot brighter-eyed than we did, didn't he, when he was picking up his bag? Yeah.
Were you not time zoning yourself, Andrew?
I mean,
getting really sharp for the 1 a.m. finish.
There's only so much you can do, isn't there? When Pierre Gasly was saying.
The answer to that is no. Then
Pierre Gasly was saying that he'd been building towards this time zone for a while now, back in Europe, but he hasn't got kids and a day job and all the rest of it. So some of us don't have that luxury, nor do we have private jets to fly over to America in, and so on and so forth.
Oh, excuses from Benson. Failed to prepare to fail.
Did you, John?
Are you going to tell us about your holiday in Los Angeles?
Oh, I've been adjusting for a week. It's been lovely.
Where was our invite?
You know what? I think it's... No, I'm not complaining, but being on American time for a week and then now having to work nights in America is not a lot easier.
Well, I think just in case people aren't aware, the race is actually on Japanese time, effectively. When you look at it in terms of when is it like a normal race, at what part in the world. So you've flown 8 hours backwards, but actually you're trying to set your body clock for 8 hours forwards. And I think that's what people are finding difficult at the moment this weekend, because normally you've got some kind of help to help you adjust to the different time that you're moving on to. It's either it's daylight in the case of most places you go to, or in the case of Singapore, which is a night race, you're not actually changing time zone because you're fixing yourself still on European time. Whereas here, we're being asked to change time zone, but also be awake mostly when it's dark. So I think, I'm guessing, but not being an expert on sleep rhythms and circadian rhythms and so on, but I'm guessing that might be the root of what people's problems are.
It's also, we've had night races before. It's Singapore, but Singapore kicks off at 8 p.m. It's palatable. We're heading towards 4 a.m. This is an absolute definition of a night race, Rosanna.
It certainly is. And also, when you spend a lot of time in Vegas, you are in and out of the hotels, which have this incredible sort of fake light effect, don't they? They have sort of ceilings that look like you're outside, but you're inside. The light is quite odd. I've felt very discombobulated, I think, over the last couple of days that we've been here.
Well, it's well known, Rosanna, that the casinos have all sorts of techniques for keeping people awake. You're absolutely right. They have a kind of permanent twilight feeling, don't they, to them? They're said to pump extra oxygen into the air, and it's actually quite hard to find places to be outside in Las Vegas. Once you're in, do you know what I mean? Once you're in a hotel, you're kind of stuck in there. You can get lost in all the malls and so on. And it's the whole weekend. So we're not even having a weekend yet, are we? We're still in the week, but it's been a completely surreal experience so far for most people, I think.
Fernando Alonso on a flying lap, and he's done the fastest first sector of anyone. So just as we thought the times would maybe head towards long runs, Alonso's put on a set of softs and he's hammering it around. Fastest first sector, decent middle sector. It's a personal best, a couple of tenths away from Charles Leclerc, who's the fastest man outright and the fastest man through that middle part of the lap. He's got his DRS open, and now he's heading down towards the final corner, down at turn 15. Right-hander bounces over the curb, load of opposite lock for him.
Yeah, he did a good job to collect that there, did Fernando. But he set a pretty decent first sector as he charges down now past our commentary box window across the line. Wow, and that is close. 0.003 of a second faster than Charles Leclerc as he jumps to the top of the times.
3,000 separates Alonso from Leclerc. The Aston Martin mechanics give a little bit of applause for their hero who got them back to the podium last time out. There's only 3,000 from Leclerc to Hamilton as well. There is 6,000 separating the top 3 drivers. Aston Martin, Ferrari, Mercedes. Williams is in there in 4th, just 300ths back. It's incredibly tight for a 1 minute 36. It's quite a long lap. Not all that technical, as some of the drivers pointed out before this weekend, but incredibly tight right now.
I'd imagine there's a fair bit of track evolution going on, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So this lap time by Alonso, for example, won't be comparable directly with the lap time by Leclerc, which was done, 5-10 minutes ago, something like that. Maybe even more. And Hamilton's in between. I've lost track of the order things have gone in, but it's it doesn't mean to say that the Aston Martin will be that quick, even though they did qualify, let's not forget, 3rd and 4th, with Lance Stroll ahead of Fernando Alonso in Brazil 2 weeks ago.
Hey, it's not that often that you see the mechanics wearing woolly hats and big jackets, is it? Can't say I've seen that this season, and probably haven't seen it for quite a few seasons. It always reminds me when it used to be the pre-season test in Barcelona, and it's foggy and it's chilly. Did you... I guess your pre-season test would have been Barcelona back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Chilly.
3-degree starts, woolly hats. I pine for those days now. It's all in Bahrain and it's all very nice and warm. It's, you know what, commentary box doors just blown open now as well. There's a big draft coming through. Might have to get bobble hats in the commentary box right now. It's very rare that you get these sort of climbs in Formula One, and it makes this race a little bit unique.
While we're on the subject of the door being open, producer Paddy is all over the place with his attire this weekend, isn't he? He came to Heathrow wearing shorts, saying he was in denial about the winter weather.
Well, he's the Vegas expert of the team.
But he arrived. He's been wearing a thick coat all day, and now it's like freezing cold outside, and he's standing out there in a t-shirt with the door open. I don't really quite understand. Anyway,
maybe he's going through something. Maybe he's not feeling quite well at this time of the morning.
Let's throw him under the bus. He can't hear us anyway. He's tuned out of it. 38 minutes left on the clock. 38 minutes and 18 of this FP2 session. The only real session we're going to get in today's running because of the manhole cover incidents that we had earlier on in FP1. They've been fixed. Thankfully, we've nearly had an hour's clean running in this one, and we're back towards a normal weekend. Normal service seems resumed. I'm seeing on hashtag BBC F1 a little bit of negativity about this weekend. A lot of people saying the show, is it destined to fail in Las Vegas? People I feel like are wanting this one to fail a little bit. There's generally a cynical mood amongst the fans, Andrew.
I think among the media, if people care about that sort of thing, there's a sense that there's been a bit of hubris about Formula One coming into this race, and that they've fallen a bit flat on their faces a bit so far. The decision to not have the media centre in the paddock definitely backfired on them. We got a very sort of aggressive response to questions about that yesterday. Basically, it was pointed out to us that the hospitality took priority, i.e. money. 24 hours later, we all got a message saying they're going to fix it for next year. Then they had the problems with the track. It's obviously all been a bit of a rush. They've spent an awful lot of money. They're not going to make money this year. We obviously hope they're going to make money going forward. But I think, let's keep this in perspective. We were talking about this earlier, weren't we, in the very brief first session. I think it's been so the Toto Wolff's wider point today was that this is just a practice session, get over it. These things have happened before. And it's because the race is so high profile. I've sensed the heightened interest, not just from the public about this race, but also from work. Everyone's interested in it. And I think if qualifying and race produce a spectacle, and I don't see how they can't, frankly, with the cars racing past the strip and the sphere and all the rest of it. And just the cachet and kudos of being in Las Vegas, finally racing down the strip. I think we have to judge it in perspective at the end of the weekend before we can make any kind of proper call on whether it's been a success or a failure.
It's certainly been a tough start to the weekend. This has not been the ideal first day, but we've had a clean nearly hour of running. We should mention again, the fans were all told to leave. They couldn't be in the fan areas for this session. So it's effectively behind closed doors. There are a few fans that have stayed in the grandstands, but literally 10, 12.
They're surely security, no? Maybe.
Oh, maybe they are. Yeah.
I mean, I feel for the fans because when we were walking back to the circuit after going to get some dinner, or you could call it breakfast, I don't know what you want to call it right at the moment, there was still a few fans in the grandstand who'd been waiting all this entire time, and now they've been asked to leave before the session has even restarted. They've paid their money to be there, so I kind of feel really sorry for them, to be honest.
It's not a great look, that part of it, on the Friday. I guess we'll wait and see what happens with Formula One, the tickets that they've bought, and whether there'll be any sort of compensation for
and the
those
hospitalities
fans.
are shut as well, so paddock clubs closed at 1:30 this morning, so all areas were shut, so it doesn't matter how much money you paid for your ticket, you weren't allowed to be on site.
We did have a question on BBC F1 about what happens if this was Saturday night. Is there provision to go very late into the hours of Sunday morning as well, or is there a hard cut-off?
I don't know the answer to that question. It's a good one because the race does start at 10 o'clock, but they've got quite a lot of leeway, haven't they? Even if that 4 o'clock shut-off that we believe is in place is active on Saturday into Sunday, there's, 6 hours for a race window? I don't think there's much danger of that being exceeded.
Should be okay. Charles Leclerc has improved to go back to the top of the times. Verstappen had just beaten him. Sainz had just got down there as well, but Leclerc pumps in a 1 minute 35.696 into the 1 minute 35s for the first time. He's now 6/10 clear of Verstappen. They've both just been out on another set of soft tyres, as has Carlos Sainz, and Leclerc has pumped them by 6/10. Verstappen and Sainz second and third, then it's Alonso now down to fourth in a hurry, followed by Hamilton back in the pits, Albon, Perez, Hulkenberg up in 8th, Russell 9th, Magnussen is 10th. Both Haas cars have just done another flyer. Then it's Bottas, Piastri, Ricciardo, Ocon, Zhou, Stroll 16th ahead of Sargent, Tsunoda, Gasly and Norris now at the bottom of the pack. Loads of cars on outlaps, so I think we're going to get a second flurry of quali simulation runs. Maybe this is the true picture then.
Maybe, and I'll tell you what, just thinking about it, looking at that Leclerc lap time, we don't know what's going to happen now in the next few minutes, but on the face of it, this should be a Charles Leclerc track, shouldn't it? He's absolutely outstanding at Baku. He smashed Carlos Sainz there this year by 8/10 in qualifying and in one session and 5/10 in the other. And he likes street circuits, first of all, and he likes circuits with walls and long straights, short duration corners and hard brakings, and this is exactly what Las Vegas is. So I think that's why so many people think that a Ferrari, and particularly his, might be on pole position tomorrow. Or is it today?
It's today. No, wait, it's tomorrow.
No, it's tomorrow. It's midnight till 1, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, dear. But Gasly was trying there to boost himself further up on the times. I'm riding on board now of a replay. He's going to go sailing past the apex at turn 1. Actually, just as he tried to turn the car in, the rear over-rotated, so maybe those rears weren't up to temperature, weren't in the window that he would have liked going into turn 1, so he's obviously backed right out of it. He had Piastri right behind him as well, so he's also let him through. But now Max Verstappen, the green, so personal best in the first sector, a yellow, which is not the best, in the middle sector, and we'll see what he does in the final sector, as we have a yellow flag, but it's now gone clear and green in the first 2 sectors. So we'll wait to see now as Max Verstappen flashes past the commentary box window. He does improve, but it's not enough. It is certainly still half a second off Charles Leclerc, who, as you said, Benny, loves these street circuits.
Hulkenberg jumps up to 4th in the Haas, so the time's still coming down, the track improving. George Russell was the man that caused the yellow flag at turn 5. That's the right-hander that takes you towards the section with the MSG sphere. Very, very bright on the driver's right-hand side as they turn in, then to the left as they come round turn 6, where Verstappen is right now, trying to pick a braking point for turn 7. Verstappen on a slow lap, though, on this one, having just made that improvement. It's very bright, that sphere, isn't it? Right in the driver's eye line as well, through some of those corners. And Verstappen now can exit that section, go past the Wynn Golf Course, and set himself up for another lap.
I tell you what's weird as well, there was a story yesterday or the day before, I can't remember now, about certain colours being banned from the sphere because it's so bright, and those colours were blue, yellow and red, obviously, for the flags. And there were two colours on the sphere right then, and they were blue and yellow, so I don't know quite what's going on there. But
yeah, Russell actually said, don't worry about it. The sphere's so big that we just ignore it. And he did have a moment, not at Sphere Corner, just a lap ago. That was at turn 5. So that's the first driver we've seen off at turn 5. And Russell got going again. So an hour now into the session, and we've got Norris on a flying lap, and he's way wide coming into turn 12. And he's going to lose a heap of time on that one. So Norris, currently 20th, is not going to improve in the end on this flying lap. McLaren are doing something very different here. 12th for Piastri, 20th for Norris.
They often do on a Friday. They often run heavy on a Friday in the same way that Williams often run light. I suspect that it'll equalise out. Although slow corners, having said that, are not McLaren's strength. And Lando Norris has been saying for a while that the last few races of the season shouldn't play to them. But then he also said yesterday, I'm going to stop predicting because I keep getting it wrong.
When did he last say that they would be strong? All of these races, Norris is saying that, no, we're not going to be there. Austin was not going to be a McLaren circuit. He led more than half the Grand Prix. Mexico, he flew through the field after not getting it together in qualifying. Brazil, he was the only driver to keep Verstappen in check, and none of them were going to be McLaren circuits on paper. This one is the same. Like you said, the low-speed corners where they don't think they're particularly good, but McLaren seem pretty solid right now, and they're surely Red Bull's closest challenger on any given track. Norris going again, Alice.
Yeah, well, we just got to see a replay there, didn't we? Riding on board of why he went wide. And it was bouncing everywhere, wasn't it? And he tried to get the car turned and rotated, and it almost just bounced and skipped across the road, and he went wide. But he is going again. He is, though, 3.5 tenths down in the first sector alone, which is to Charles Leclerc at the moment. So it doesn't look like a comfortable ride. Now he's at turn 12, and he gets through there nice and safely, very close to the wall on the exit there, and 1.3 seconds down, and that is just leaving sector 2. So yeah, doesn't look in a good place at the moment, do McLaren?
No, do something very different. Piastri's 11th, 1.3 seconds down. Norris is going to come through the final corner. It's a 2-kilometre straight down towards turn 15, down the strip. Iconic hotels on your right-hand side, past Caesar's Palace, past the Venetian on the left-hand side as well. And Norris now comes through that final corner at turn 15 and can drive towards the line, sweeping flat out through 17. And then the finish line comes right up towards you. And actually it's a decent final sector from Lando there. So he stays 1.1 seconds down, gets himself up into the top 10. But McLaren's still not showing their hand right now with 27 minutes and 44 seconds left on the clock. Someone that is showing their hand is Fernando Alonso. Back on form is Fernando Alonso right now. On the podium last time out. He was a very happy chap, wasn't he, Andrew, when you spoke to him? On your flight, maybe?
No, it wasn't on the flight. I wasn't in the right area of the aeroplane to speak to him on the flight, unfortunately. No, it was in the paddock earlier, yesterday, whatever. I had a little chat with him about Brazil. He said he ranked it in his top 5 races ever. Now, that's not the sort of thing he would volunteer. I asked that question, where would you put it? But he said it wasn't up with Valencia 2012 or even Malaysia 2012, but it was a good one. He said the difficult thing wasn't holding Perez back for 15 laps when he had DRS right behind him. Alonso just goes second fastest, by the way, so maybe what I said earlier about Aston Martin not being competitive wasn't right. We'll have to find out. He said it was getting back past him, having lost the position in the first place. That last lap, or the lap before the last lap, I should say, he said it was really, really hard work to position the car in the right places to trick Perez into making the wrong defences, particularly into turn 1, where he wasn't going for the move, but he made it look like he was, made Perez go offline, and that gave him the shot down into turn 4. That he said was the most difficult part of that race for him.
You know what I think did it for him was his tenacity. And I think the problem was for Perez, he knew that he had the most tenacious person behind him, and Alonso just kept looking in on the inside and all those infield corners and kept Perez defending and looking in his mirrors, and the Red Bull couldn't get away from him. It was determination that set up that move for Alonso.
Well, from what he was saying, that was a plan. All the way around that lap, he was planning to make it uncomfortable for Perez to be in the wrong place so he couldn't get away, because he knew that Red Bull was faster, so he had to find a way to slow it down. So if Perez had just stayed calm and just driven that lap as fast as he could, he probably would have stayed in front, but he didn't. As you say, allowed himself to get hassled by the fact that it was Alonso behind him and got tricked into losing the place.
I think it makes a difference. That's where having the Alonso effect, someone that you know is going to fight for everything, you start to think the lunge could come at any corner. It's very tricky. I've raced against Fernando myself and felt exactly the same thing. You're looking in your mirrors because you never know when he's going to pop up next, and Perez was really kicking himself, not quite getting it back on the line. Was there anyone that you raced, Alice, that you just thought they're never going to give up, they're going to be all over you until the end?
No, I don't think I can.
The most tenacious racer?
No, I can't think of anyone on the top of my head. I think everyone's... Isn't that most drivers? They're never going to give up?
But some accept defeat a little bit easier than others.
I suppose if they've not had good results and they're in a good position, they kind of go, I'm going to stay here.
It's also not just about wanting to get the position back. It's about someone knowing that you can. You know, so if you've got Verstappen behind you, for example, or Alonso, you know that they've got tricks up their sleeve, right, that a lot of other drivers don't have. So, and that's why you're in that mindset, because as you say, someone else you might think, well, he's not going to try up the hill into turns 5 and 6, for example, in Brazil. But if you look back through Alonso's career, he has overtaken people around the outside there, for example, which a lot of people can't do. So you can't afford to relax with someone like that, whereas you might be able to feel like you can with others.
He's a driver that you never know when he's not going to throw a move in. He's always there, and even when you think you've got it done, then there's still a chance he'll fight back. Sergio Perez found that out in Brazil, and Alonso got a podium. He was on a very fast lap, and this time currently second quickest, had improved his best first sector, but Alice, another one going straight on at turn 12.
Yeah, he'd just gone purple, so fastest out of anybody in the first sector, but it's that turn 12 which has caught Alonso, like many other drivers as well, and Sargent has gone off as well at turn 12. So clearly that's going to be a corner that we're going to have to keep an eye on for the entire weekend. So the sound you can hear now is riding on board with Fernando. Tries to get the car turned in, loses the rear ever so slightly, and then as he decides to add that extra bit of lock, that inside left tyre says no thank you, puff of smoke, and he does manage to turn it around without spinning the car around.
And I was wondering why they're going off at turn 12 and not turn 14, which is the end of a longer straight. But I reckon, and you guys know more than me, but it's because they're approaching that corner through a corner, aren't they?
Yes.
So the inside of the car is going to be unloaded as they're braking.
Yeah, there's actually, if we're watching the replays as well, there is like a bump. I mean, I guess it's turn 11. It's not down on the official map, but it goes 10 to 12, so let's call it turn 11. So on the exit of turn 11, as they're turning through there, it then almost runs straight into 12. So you're right, Andrew. You are effectively near enough turning with a little bit of lock on, which of course then that inside front left is going to be a little bit lighter, so is more prone to snatching and to locking up. And actually Carlos Sainz was directly behind Fernando and did the exact same thing as him. So interested to see how that's going to play as well when the drivers are struggling in the race with tyre degradation. There might be a few positions lost and a few positions gained down there at turn 12.
It's a crucial corner, isn't it? Because you've got the DRS, you've got the longest run coming out of it, so you can push the entry. That's where all the drivers are locking up. But if you start compromising the exit, then you're going to be a sitting duck in race trim. But this is the time for everyone to push the limits and find it out. We've had so many drivers go off now at turn 12. Sainz was the latest on a flying lap attempt. He's in third position behind Alonso, still second, who's also just been off there, and Charles Leclerc top of the times. 21 minutes and 36, 35, 34 left to go. Max Verstappen on the soft tyres, starting a flying lap once again, coming through the right-hander of turn 3, and we'll see if Verstappen is on a flyer, if he's switched to high fuel. So far it doesn't look like anyone really has switched to the long runs just yet. Everyone prioritising the short runs as Verstappen hits the brakes after 800 metres of the straight down towards turn 5. He's 2 seconds down. It's a long run now for Max.
I think Hamilton has also started a long run. He's just done 2 laps in the 1 minute 40-second barrier on medium tyres. They are new mediums, I think, but that would suggest it's a little bit maybe quick, you would think, for a race run, but it's heading in that direction, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like with 20 minutes left on the clock, the qualifying sims are done, and Leclerc is going to be the pace man. He's going to be joined, though, by Carlos Sainz, who's just nibbled his way ahead of Fernando Alonso. Still half a second down on his teammate, but it is now a Ferrari 1-2 as Sainz makes a late improvement. Alonso's in the pits in third ahead of Perez, and Bottas is having a good showing in the Alfa Romeo. Verstappen is 6th. Nico Hulkenberg is 7th in the downgraded Haas. So Haas have brought a big upgrade package to Austin, their last home race, 3 American Grand Prix. This is the final one, and there was a lot of hope for them to move up. They're in this big fight for 7th in the Constructors' Championship. They've not landed it. It's not gone well for them. Hulkenberg's not happy. They've slipped down to 10th in the Constructors' Championship. They're a full 4 points away now from Alfa Romeo. And Hulkenberg has switched back to the old setup whilst Magnussen retains the upgrades. I feel like, Andrew, this is something that Haas do pretty much every year.
They certainly did it a couple of years ago, if you remember, with Magnussen and Grosjean. Same thing happened. They upgraded the car. Maybe it was 3 years ago, and it wasn't working for them, and Grosjean wanted to go back, and they spent much of the rest of the year running different spec cars, basically. It's not encouraging. They basically moved their car, for want of a better, sort of in simplistic terms, from running a kind of Ferrari-style philosophy into a Red Bull-style philosophy. And Hulkenberg said that each one had different advantages, but he was more comfortable with particularly with these kind of tracks coming up with these short duration 90-degree corners, which predominate both here and in Abu Dhabi. He felt that the old spec car was more comfortable to drive around those sorts of corners, so he wanted to go back. But he was quite open about it yesterday, Hulkenberg. He was saying it obviously not a good sign going into next year to make this big change, which they were obviously expecting to be leading into next year's car design, and for it to be not definitive in any way.
But I feel like it's a trend for Haas that they always start the year well, they always drop back, they forever have struggled with tyre degradation, and forever they've not understood why. And this latest thing is this latest upgrade that's not working. It's just such a common theme of their headaches.
Yeah, it'd be frustrating for them. I'm sure that Hulkenberg is out of the car and he walked to the back of the garage, so either he needs a pit stop of his own, or there's another issue somewhere along the line. But yeah, they're just quite up and down. Like you said, they start seasons off really well, so that's disappointing for them. But actually, you know, Hulkenberg, they should be fairly pleased, I would guess, sitting there in 7th place at the moment.
Alice, I have to report, apparently he was going to the toilet.
So a pit stop of his own.
Yes, exactly. We were all panicking. The WhatsApp threads were lighting up. What's wrong with Nico? Is there a problem with the old spec car? And in fact, he just needed to go and have a comfort break. I think we're all in need of a comfort break, quite frankly.
Yeah. I have to agree.
We're not used to the 90-minute sessions, are we?
No, it's not that kind of comfort break I need, I can tell you. It's a different kind of comfort break, but
a southern one.
A more horizontal one, Rosanna.
Gone are the days of the 90-minute practice sessions. We've got them again today. We've got 17 minutes left of it. The one crucial session of the day. We had one as well, didn't we, in Montreal? And I didn't actually work that Friday. Took the day off. Missed a 90-minute Friday practice again. For old time's sakes. We've got it again here. We've got 16 minutes and 52, 51, 50 seconds. And we got Valtteri Bottas locking up at turn 12.
Yeah, you could hear it clatter, didn't you, as he tried to slow it down, and then wound even more lock on as he was getting some understeer and snatched that front left. But he bleeds on, carries on down the straight. Sparks flying out the back of the Alfa Romeo. He's currently sitting in 5th place, let's round it up, 9/10 of a second off Charles Leclerc, as everyone on the Alfa pit wall, they have got their big jackets on. It's clearly quite chilly out there, air temperature is still 13.9 degrees, track temperature is 15 degrees. Carlos Sainz is in the garage. No tyres on that car at the moment. He takes a swig of water and continues to wait for the team to finish whatever they need to do and send him back on his way.
Yeah, he's a man that really needs some long running because he's got race pace to unlock if he's going to do his overtaking. Sainz with at least a 10-place grid penalty, probably a 10-place grid penalty for the Grand Prix on Saturday evening as a result of having to change the battery on his Ferrari car after the big strike he had with the manhole cover in FP1. And for Ferrari, that's going to hurt. Remember, they're still in this championship fight with Mercedes. There's a couple of fights going on. Let's remind ourselves with 2 rounds to go. We've got Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton potentially fighting it out for second in the Drivers' Championship. There are 32 points now between them, though. And I think Hamilton's a little resigned as to his hopes of getting that after Mercedes' pretty tough run in Brazil. Perez took a lot of points back. Hamilton himself has got 28 points back to Fernando Alonso, 31 to Norris, so any mistakes from him, and that might, third in the championship, might come into play. But the Drivers' Championship is looking fairly settled. The Constructors' Championship, less so. 20 points separating Mercedes and Ferrari. Both of those teams had just one driver finish in Brazil. Ferrari had just one driver start in Brazil as well. And Ferrari, this is an exact Ferrari circuit with 20 points. The difference between second and third in the Constructors, millions of pounds to be won by getting that place, and kudos at being the closest to Red Bull, even if no one's particularly closest yet. That's even going to hurt even more for Sainz, isn't it? The 10th place and the whole of Ferrari. And that's probably part of the reason. Not only the cost would have been a real nightmare for Fred Vasseur in the cost cap era, but also just purely the 10th place grid drop that Sainz has got to have when with 14 minutes to go they're sitting pretty at 1-2.
Yeah, I mean that damage bill is going to be a very, very large one indeed, but it just doesn't seem to go their way, does it, Ferrari? Charles Leclerc, for example, who is sat half a second clear at the top of the times than his teammate, has suffered a disqualification, a do not start. He has got 2 pole positions and a podium finish and a sprint top 3, all in his last 3 Grand Prix weekends. So he's had a right mixed bag, hasn't he? He's had, and that just shows motorsport in general, doesn't he? He's had some real highs with the pole positions, and then it's just not gone to plan at all for them getting disqualified, and obviously the DNS, so do not start. So yeah, I guess if he doesn't have a great weekend, he is in danger of not finishing in the top 6 of the Drivers' Championship. That'll be for the 3rd time in the last sort of 4 seasons. But I don't want to jinx him. He seems to be going okay so far this weekend.
Yeah, it's actually an example. The Ferrari drivers is an example of why championship points positions are not always a fair reflection of a driver's season. If you actually analyse Sainz and Leclerc's seasons race by race, Leclerc is more often than not the faster driver, not just in qualifying where he's consistently been faster than Sainz, but just generally just more impressive over the weekend. But as you were saying, Alice, there's a whole list of things that have gone wrong. You think back to Bahrain when he lost an engine in the first race, then had an engine grid penalty at the second race in Saudi Arabia. All these things add up, and they've ended up adding up to him being behind Sainz in the championship when on performance terms, both in race and qualifying, he really should be ahead.
I think this has been Sainz's best year with Ferrari, though.
I agree completely, but
still. He's a Grand Prix winner this year, Carlos Sainz, with that majestic defensive drive in Singapore. Had his own did not start in Qatar, where maybe he was relieved to escape the really high heat of Losail. He's not had completely his own way as Sainz, and Ferrari have had a lot of bad luck. Leclerc said he was the unluckiest person as he punched the steering wheel, retiring on the formation lap in Brazil. And these are all points that have slipped by Ferrari in a year where actually the pace of their car has been pretty much there or thereabouts, certainly over 1 lap as well, even compared to Red Bull in recent times. Sainz had a big moment down at the first corner.
Yeah, that doesn't just tried to turn in there, and the rear was having none of it, was it? Flicked him round. Luckily for him, there's quite a lot of runoff down there at turn 1. Otherwise, I think he would have found a barrier quite quickly. And we're also seeing a replay of Logan Sargent just brushing the wall. The sound you can hear now is on board with George Russell.
You can listen to that. You can hear the floor of that car scraping along the ground so aggressively for Russell as he's going straight on once again in turn 12. Full loop around, and Russell will get going again. There's plenty of areas in the big braking zones where you can just go straight on, and we've seen that so far today. It's similar to Baku in that respect, this circuit. There's lower downforce, huge straights, and big braking zones where you can push the limit and run off into the runoff areas and rejoin safely. I remember racing in Baku the first year, and on the Friday, this was in the days of 90-minute sessions, so we had 3 hours of running. I think it was over 100 yellow flags.
Really?
For drivers going straight on and just pushing the limits. It was incredible, really. Lower temperatures, difficult to find a bit of grip. I've actually been surprised today, with 10 minutes left on the clock, how incident-free it's been.
We've still got 10 minutes left to go. But actually, touching on, you say about the yellow flags, that could come into play in qualifying. You know, you want to be ideally a track like this has got no support races out at all. You know, they do open the strip at a certain time, so cars will be going out and using the road. Normal road cars will be going round. So you want to ideally, if you get through to Q3, even if you're looking at in any of the qualifying sessions, that you want to leave it last minute. You know, you want to have the best sort of track conditions. You want everyone else to have sort of cleaned it for you. But what does that leave? That leaves you being at big risk to someone locking up and you just catching a yellow flag, and you've got to show you've slowed down, you know, and you've not gone potentially any quicker than your sort of previous lap, or your previous push lap. So that could come into play as well over the weekend.
Bit of jeopardy in the weekend. We've seen that happen so many times, haven't we? Mexico at the end of Q1 caught out Lando Norris, and he had to start from the back, didn't get a time on the board. There's so many runoff areas that you can bring out a yellow flag. It's happened in Baku in the past as well. That'll certainly be something to watch out for tomorrow. We're getting towards 4 a.m. 8 minutes left in the session. Nearly bedtime, Andrew Benson. Nearly bedtime. Rosanna, all cars are out on track. The mechanics still looking hungry, still eager for work.
Do you know what, Gillian? I've just wandered up and down the pit lane having a little look in each of the garages, and I mean this in a nice way, but we all look a little bit dead behind the eyes. A lot of mechanics standing just staring into the blue yonder, a lot of yawns. I know it's contagious, so once one person yawns, everybody follows suit, but there are a lot of tired people down here in the pit lane. And you talk about jeopardy, you can probably throw a little bit of finger trouble into the mix as well. Yes, Formula One had a weekend off last weekend, but it was off the back of an intense triple header, and of course this is the first race of the final. Then a back-to-back, that sound there was Lewis Hamilton coming in for a pit stop, a practice pit stop by the Mercedes team. You know, this is when these little mistakes creep in, when people are a little bit tired, getting towards the end of the season, concentration starts to slip. But yes, I think bedtime, probably sooner for you and me maybe, and the guys in the commentary box, because of course the mechanics, the engineers will be here probably long into I was going to say night, early into the morning, looking at the data that they've collected over the last nearly 90 minutes.
It's going to be an odd feeling, isn't it, when the sun starts to come up? It's a bit like back in the party days for us. We're all getting on a little bit now, but when you're out into the early hours, and
I don't know I've ever actually done that. That's
really
actually quite depressing.
Leclerc giving Zhou the wakey. Too late for him, heading towards 4 a.m. You've never been out into the early hours and you're staggering back. The sun's coming up and you're feeling a bit debauched.
No.
Oh,
really, my life has been extremely boring. Have you done that? Benny must have done that. Yeah, he's shaking his head. What about you, Rosanna?
Yeah, I've been there, coming out into the sunlight, the daylight, and the bin lorries are there collecting the rubbish, the milk floats are there. That sounds like I was going out in the 1960s, but...
milk floats. Where were you going out?
Oh, Canterbury and Kent, fine city that it is. I used to drive. I wouldn't drink, but actually you'd come out and there would be the milk float delivering the milk and the orange juice, and there'd be me just tootling home in my car. I just wanted to be there for the action,
What about university, Rosanna? You didn't go to university in Canterbury, did you?
No, I went to another fine city, Durham, up north. That was more of a walk back. Yeah, I didn't have the car then. But
You didn't hitchhike with the milk floats.
Can you imagine the scenes? Me dangling off the back of a milk float.
I can. Yeah, I can. I think that would suit you.
At 4 in the morning, this sounds hallucinogenic, doesn't it? It's not what I'm up to these days, I have to say.
Well, sunrise is at 6:18 in the morning, so we're getting closer to that. So maybe Benny might still be here writing his press releases or reports.
Not press releases, that's something else. But I've got a good way to go yet, Alice, that's for sure.
So we have got a yellow flag in sectors 1 and 2, but we've got 5 minutes remaining of the session. And what's the best way now to wake us up, to make sure that we're still alive and ready for these final 5 minutes of this session? And that, of course, means it's time for this, right?
Long Run Corner with Andrew Benson.
You can go the distance, we'll find out. In the long run.
Well, it's been an interesting set of long runs, actually. The lap times are kind of all over the place, and actually they're getting quicker as they go on through their runs. But it didn't look like this for a while. But guess what? Max Verstappen's fastest. By not that much, but enough to win the race. Next, it's probably not a surprise that it's Leclerc and Sainz in the Ferraris ahead of Perez and Hamilton. Alonso's run's been quite short so far. I'll just add in one more lap into that while we're talking, and that comes out to just a little bit slower than Hamilton. So, as you were.
So Verstappen is going to win. He's got it.
Surprise, surprise.
Is it? And he's clear-cut quicker than the Ferraris then at this stage. Let's hear Sergeant.
It's messy.
That's fine. Heads down. That's fine, mate.
So that was the reason we had a yellow flag moments ago at turn 5. Same corner as Russell had a spin turn earlier on as well. Sergeant rejoined, apologises for having a bit of a messy run. He's on his long run and is clearly struggling to get a bit of consistency out there. Yeah, you reckon Verstappen is...
About 3/10. Yeah.
Okay.
What I haven't... The one car I haven't managed to get was Lando Norris. Apologies for that. If anyone's listening, I suppose it is daytime in the UK. They may well be, mightn't they? So, yeah, I don't know his average run on the medium tyre. Conveniently, they've all done the medium tyre, which suggests to me that that's the tyre they're going to start on in the race. It's probably going to be a one-stop.
And making your life easy at 3:56.
Thank goodness.
But I tell you what, if it is only 3/10, that can be quite a big gap, depending on how you're looking at it. Then obviously we've got the use of these DRS zones and these really long straights. So actually, if, let's say, Max Verstappen is in front and he's got Charles Leclerc bearing down on him, that gap's probably not that big if he can make good use of these two DRS zones and the very, very long 1.7 kilometre straight between turn 12 and 14.
This certainly looks like a good chance for Ferrari. Again, with Sainz having that grid drop, though, they're only going to have one car up there to play with Verstappen and Perez and Hamilton and whoever else can be knocking around, maybe Norris. And they lose that strategic advantage that got them the Singapore win. So there's so many implications that Sainz and Ferrari are going to lose out. And Leclerc is going to lose out, potentially having a rear gunner when he's got half a second to the field today on one lap pace. This could be a Leclerc pole with what we've seen. He's been on it from the word go. There's a lot that can change. There'll be big debriefs tonight, and whilst we are into the final last 2 minutes, we're close to sleeping. The drivers, engineers, they're all going to be up for a long time. They'll see the daylight, won't they? A couple more hours.
Yeah, they will. They certainly will. But even, I hate to say it because of course I'd love to see a Ferrari win, but even if Charles did qualify on pole, with how Ferrari have been going, it doesn't fill you with confidence that, yeah, Ferrari will get the job done. Does it really? Because if you look back at their races with reliability or sort of errors, I think, personally, Singapore was Carlos Sainz. He made that call. He was so clever with how he used that DRS. Would he have won that Grand Prix if it wasn't for him being so clever with using how he used DRS?
No, it was a Sainz special, wasn't it? And Singapore was a very special Grand Prix as well, because Sainz could go so slowly and not be overtaken for the first 2/3 of it until Mercedes split the strategy, and it really negated the Ferrari weakness by doing that. Yellow flag out in the last minute of the session. Again, that's down at turn 5, and it is cleared. So another driver that has come through there and found the runoff area, got going again. 30 seconds left on the clock. Piastri is going to put a lunge onto Alex Albon down at the final corner and get a little bit racing. The McLaren and the Williams coming up towards the line. 20 seconds left on the clock. They'll probably get through and start another flying lap. 40 laps on the board is the most of anyone by Lewis Hamilton, and as Sargent clocks up another one, homeboy Logan Sargent and Alex Albon as well. It's 40 laps, decent run. They've really made the most of this 90-minute session. Everyone over 30 laps. Norris was a little bit late out. He's now on lap 31. Checker flag is out, and it's been clean by and large. A few lockups, a few yellow flags, but it's been clean. I've been actually surprised the grip level's been quite good. Track grips come up quite quickly. The tyres, even in the cool temperatures, are working. After the chaos, the drama, the controversy of FP1, I would say this is a bit run-of-the-mill.
Yeah, no, I would say so. And we've got some close times. Okay, yeah, Charles Leclerc is half a second quicker than his teammate, with Fernando Alonso there in third and Carlos Sainz in second. They're very close on times, with Sergio Perez not too far behind. Max Verstappen, that's an interesting one. He's down there in 6th place. But Logan Sargent, there's a big gap between him and his teammate. He's down in 20th place. And Alex Albon, 10 places higher. And this is nearly a second, isn't it, separating those two? So, yeah, not... Actually, no, it's 2.2... Is it 2 seconds separating those two? So not ideal, as the cars now filter across the line, and the sound you can hear is a replay of being on board with Max Verstappen, who I said has finished the session in 6th place, locks up on that medium tyre and has to abort quite quickly, Jolyon, before collecting or sending himself into the tyre barrier.
Even the champion is bringing out the yellow flag so far today, but nobody has managed to find the wall. Daniel Ricciardo had a late lock-up at turn 12, but actually managed to keep it on the track. Clean session in the end, and it finished with Charles Leclerc at the top of the times, ahead of Carlos Sainz. Half a second difference between the two Ferraris. A dominant display from Charles Leclerc on the soft tyre earlier on. Then it's Alonso third, ahead of Perez, Bottas, Verstappen, Hulkenberg up in 7th, Stroll 8th, Hamilton, the first Mercedes, in 9th, ahead of Alex Albon. Then Norris, the first McLaren, down in 11th, 1.5 seconds off the pace. Then it's Russell, Magnussen, Piastri, Gasly, Ocon, Tsunoda, Zhou, Ricciardo. And as you say, Alice, Logan Sargent bringing up the rear, 2.8 seconds off the pace.
Thank you very much, Jolyon. Well, you just said it was a little bit run-of-the-mill after all of the sort of waiting around for FP2 to get underway, the hype coming into this race weekend. Marks out of 10 then, from what you've seen on track. Are you excited about perhaps the run-of-the-mill becoming a little bit more racy over the course of the weekend?
I'll give it a 6. It feels a bit like Baku to me. As night, we're in a more glamorous venue, but in terms of the track, low downforce, long straights, big braking zones. The braking zones are creating the drama for the drivers at the moment. I'm getting Baku vibes of the circuit right now, and we've had some cracking races in Baku.
Yeah, we certainly have. I would say I'm going to go a little bit higher, 7. Max is down there in 6th place. You know, and we're used to seeing him up the top. Okay, this is free practice 2, so there's still a long way left to go before we have qualifying. Got another free practice session, of course. But I would say it's looking quite interesting that we could potentially have another winner.
And it is advantage Ferrari, but of course Carlos Sainz with that penalty pending. So where does this leave Ferrari when it comes to battling with Mercedes for P2 in the standings? Is this going to be a real weekend that got away from them? Another one?
the Sainz penalty is really brutal. It's according to the rules. It's as bad luck basically for Sainz, but it looks like it might cost them a lot at the moment with the pace they've got. The 1-2 looked good the whole way through. Both drivers on it on a circuit that they thought they'd be competitive on as well. And it's 10 places as well for Sainz. I thought it might be 5, but it's a full 10 for changing his energy store, taking a third component. But still for Ferrari, they're rapid and they've got a chance to get a win potentially with Leclerc. And Sainz, I think, will fancy his chances at charging through the field with the pace they've got. It's Mercedes who are under a bit more pressure. 9th for Hamilton, 12th for Russell, both over a second off. And after a pretty stodgy Brazil Grand Prix, they need to find a little bit, otherwise they could lose a load of points.
And now the real work begins. The team's obviously going to be staying up quite late. A lot of data to go over. They're going to be here until the early hours, aren't they? I mean, it's 4:05 here now. Do we think they'll be here early morning coffee breaks?
I think we're already beyond the early hours, aren't we, Rosanna? We're heading into the late hours now. Yeah, they'll be working till they're finished, and the teams have to adjust to the race, the timing of the race schedule. So it'll be tough.
It's going to be a tough one for everybody, but it is hopefully home time and ready to sleep for all of us. Thank you to Andrew, Alice and Jolyon. This has been an IMG production from BBC Radio 5 Live.